Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Ask Panel webinar. We are just going to give it 1 minute to give people a chance to join, and then we will get started. Hi, everyone. We are just going to give it 1 more minute, and we will get started shortly. Thank you for joining us for the Ask the Panel webinar today. Great. I think we can get started and people can still join as we go along. So just want to welcome everyone to the Ask the Panel webinar today. I'm Sahil. I'm the Key Partnerships Manager at Big Give. May have interacted with some of you via email or phone calls. And on the call, we also have Beth, who is our Marketing and Comms Manager. So we will be facilitating this webinar. And joining us as well is Katrina from Bees Abroad, Russell from Possible, and Anthony and Jenny from Rainforest Saver. So they will be delivering their presentations on their previous campaigns and just sharing what they've done for their successful campaigns before, and hopefully giving you some good ideas and good tips. Just before we begin, I'm just going to go over the house rules. So there is a chat function at the bottom of the Zoom panel. If you set your chat reply to everyone can see what you're saying. So this is a great way to introduce yourselves to other attendees and just explain who you are, what charity you're from, and also a good opportunity to share any ideas and thoughts you have as we go along in the webinar. Also, if there are any tech issues, please post them in there and we will pick them up. If you have any questions for the Q&A portion of the webinar, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel, rather than the chat function, because sometimes we can lose track of them in the chat function. So as you go along, any questions that you have, just put them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them at the end. For anyone that needs any closed captioning, that function is available. So if you click on the More button at the bottom of your Zoom panel, there should be the option to turn on the captions if you do need them. And as ever, we are recording this webinar, so we will be putting it on our YouTube channel. So if you do need to share it with colleagues or want to watch it back, that will be available in the next few days. And finally, if you have any questions after the webinar, as ever, just contact us at hello@biggive.org and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. With that in mind, I will stop sharing and I will hand over to our first panelist, who is Katerina from Bees Abroad. Katerina, you can unmute now.
Thank you very much, Sahil. It's very nice to be here. I'll just jump right in and then I'll do a quick introduction of Bees Abroad before going into the full presentation. Just let me know if the screen is visible to all.
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Perfect. Well, Bees Abroad is a very small charity. We're registered in the UK, but most of our work is in sub-Saharan Africa. And we focus on training groups in disadvantaged communities in beekeeping. So the focus there is in sustainable practices, locally adapted practices, and with the intention of raising awareness of the value of bees in the ecosystem as a whole, not just the honeybees, but also doing that while supporting individuals and the quality of life of the communities that they're in. So I'll just go through today the communication strategy that we had as Bees Abroad for the Christmas Big Give campaign. We do tend to do two campaigns, the Green Match Fund and the Christmas campaign, and each one has its own different angle and theme that we follow through. So at a first glance, we decided to look at the audience as just two distinct separate groups. We've got the existing donors, those that regularly donate to us or have in the past, but in a new audience that we're trying to attract. So this is a very simple split that we can then tackle differently. The key message on existing donors, or those that we know are always going to support us or regularly do, is the attractive concept of doubling their donation. That's a message that is very clear and easy to understand. And we did find that a lot of them are attracted to the message. But new donors tend to need a story to follow, to be part of, something that can get them to understand what we do and build that empathy and understanding of what we do so that they can then support in the way they can. The channels we have used are our newsletter, which is most direct, of course, communication to donors, new and existing. We did have printed materials around the campaign. We organized 2 online events, and we also used social media a lot, more specifically Facebook and Instagram. So I'm just going to go through why the story part, the single theme, is integral in our communication strategy, and guide you through how this has attracted the existing and the new donors. So we basically got an inspiration from the Nike campaign, which was "This Girl Can." And so we introduced the theme of "This Beekeeper Can." And we included within the campaign stories relating to individuals that would be disproportionately disadvantaged. So either individuals who have a long-term illness that makes them marginalized within their community, or disabled one way or another. In many cases, also just the fact that they are female instead of male in a male-dominated community. So this would be the central theme of every story or communication we have, including our online events. And so we used that, This Beekeeper Can, as a brand, a sub-brand of Bees Abroad, in a way that represents the campaign. And what this does, it allows us to create a visual brand that we carry throughout the 3 months of campaigning and communications. And because it's a short period of time, it's still linked to our main branding, but it allows people to recognize the campaign and recognize the communication, the stories, everything we bring out as part of the campaign. So an example here, we created postcards. These are A5 sized postcards that were very useful in in-person communication. Our volunteers tend to visit, to go to shows or beekeeping association events, and we encourage them to give these postcards out that include specifically the events we're about to do, which are the most relevant usually for this community. We also did place these postcards in coffee shops, in bookshops that we know support us or have a more social impact approach in general in London and in other areas that we have volunteers are able to do that. Similarly, our social media would then have stories that again have This Beekeeper Can as the branding, represent stories around the theme we've picked, and have all you can see this heart cropped image visual. Our online events, again, in a very similar manner, were very much focused on telling stories or bringing other charities or other organizations that focus on the same theme, which is using beekeeping as a means of building community or introducing inclusion for individuals that might not be usually included in the beekeeping practice and training. So in this example, the top event you see on the left, Accessible Beekeeping, this is Justin Ruger from the US, who he himself suddenly found himself disabled and, found a way to, he himself started an NGO in order to make beekeeping more accessible. And so we brought Justin in, who very kindly shared his story. And this way he was able to attract for us a new audience, which are the people that know him in the US. So a key thing with the online events is that we used Eventbrite, we used bespoke forms in order to encourage attendees to subscribe to our newsletter, which again was our direct means of communication to potential new donors. But also we opened up the option for donation, not compulsory, but optional, which we found that even though it's not part of the Big Give campaign, this was another way to link the two. And while we're on the event itself, we utilized 10 minutes out of the whole hour to talk about what we do and to introduce a QR code that people can then very quickly scan and donate to the Big Give campaign. So it was all during the Big Give week. And so we had this direct access to potential donors and encourage them to go onto the Big Give campaign. So in terms of how we built the communication, you can see we had a total of 7 stories that we would introduce throughout the 3 months. We did start very early on in October. And what we did is we gradually increased our posts, we gradually increased our newsletter communication, but always either bringing in a story together with the call to action to donate. But the main thing was very much to encourage people who just joined the journey of what we're doing in this campaign to also get a feel of what we're doing and not just ask for a donation without necessarily them understanding what it's going for. This is a very quick, short nutshell of what we've built. I do look forward to more questions later around this from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katerina. That was a really great presentation. I really like the idea about the sort of the postcards and making a bit more interactive, like something physical is always nice as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing your presentation with us. It's really great. Now on to Russell from Possible. I'll hand over to you, Russell, if you want to share your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Can people see my screen? Have I done that successfully? Yes, getting some nods. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll give myself a little introduction as well. So yeah, my name's Russell Warfield and I'm the head of communications here at Possible. And our individual giving work sits under the communications team in our charity, which is why you've got me. So Possible, for anyone that doesn't know us, we are a UK-based climate action charity. And what we do primarily is get the public directly engaged in positive and practical climate solutions, often innovative climate solutions. So we do a lot of engagement around building public consent for traffic reduction in urban spaces and stuff like that, and also getting electronics fixed on the high street, and lots of like, yeah, practical entry points to climate action to bring the public along on the transition to a net zero UK. Very happy to talk to anyone else outside of this about our charity and our work. So I'm talking about the Big Give from April last year. So this was a trip down memory lane for us. This felt like a long time ago. We were just putting this back together. But I will talk you through basically our approach. So I'm going to mainly talk to you about emailing our support, like our mailing list and our supporter base, because that is primarily how we engage and solicit donations. We do like a bit of social media alongside it, but that is mainly to just put just get that onto the eyeballs of our really core supporters. We don't hypothesize that we draw in many donations through social media, and certainly not people that are outside of our existing support base. So we kicked off just before the Big Give week with a email that we sent to all of our supporters. Which was a really simple, low like threshold of engagement survey with just 3 questions about what makes people hopeful for the future in terms of climate, and especially how that pertains to our work as a charity as well. So we really deliberately just wanted to introduce this framing, which was going to be the framing of like everything we sent throughout our throughout the fundraising appeal, but also to prime our supporters with a really low stakes ask that didn't ask much of them, certainly didn't ask them for money. We wanted to just drive engagement and get people thinking about our charity, our work, and get them to take a very simple action, which we could then escalate through the actual fundraising period itself. So the other thing to see on the slide is that something we did throughout, we did do some iterative testing of all of our emails as we did throughout. This was just sort of standard practice for most of our fundraising in or outside of the Big Give. We haven't found any like massively hard and fast conclusions about some of the testing we've done, but on this particular occasion, we found that having less copy before the first button performed best, but we don't find that that's necessarily consistent. But like I said, the primary purpose of this was to just sort of introduce this framing of what people could hope about the climate, increase this positive sentiment towards the potential for positive action on climate and the work that we're doing as a charity to actualize that. So yeah, but this is more about the survey itself. So just ask 3 really simple questions, just get people to just engage with us very, very quickly. So we're closer to the front of their mind when it's time to ask them for money in a few days' time. So yeah, we just have 3 really simple questions about how they feel about the climate, how they feel about our work, and how do they remain hopeful in spite of so many reasons not to be. And then our first direct appeal was just an extension of that framework, basically. And on this particular occasion, as you can see from the slide, the version that we sent, which had the longer ream of copy before the first button, actually performed better than the other one. So immediately our testing found that it completely, there were no hard and fast conclusions about what was working even on the same variables. But yeah, it's all like tied back to the survey messaging. And this went to everybody on our list. We then followed that up with a reminder a couple of days later to people who hadn't opened or clicked in the initial email, where we put in, like you see at the top right of the screen there, just a really short introductory reminder paragraph, which is explicitly saying like, oh, we think you might have missed our email. We just wanted to make sure you saw this. And then below the jump is exactly the same email that we sent a couple of days before. We just completely repeated it, just made sure that we put it in front of people that hadn't seen it the first time. As Katrina also mentioned, we really leaned into, one of the other things apart from this, the idea of having hope for the climate and a positive sentiment towards our work, doubling our impact was really, really key and the cornerstone of like absolutely all of our messaging. It's like an obvious thing to say about the big give, but it's a really resonant ask that really elevates the success of this as a fundraiser for us compared to any direct fundraising appeals we do outside of it. People really, really respond well to the idea of their donation and their impact being doubled. So that's a really, really key part of all of our fundraising efforts in the week as well. And then we followed this up with a third and final direct fundraising email as part of the actual Big Give week. So there were 2 versions of this email, and I'll go into a bit more detail about what we found out about this actually, is that we've obviously got a pool of regular donors that give to us either monthly or annually. And we sent them a very slightly bespoke version of the email, which references, the greater impact that their donations are having on our work and how much more, how valued they are as a regular donor. And we sent a slightly different version to everybody else on the mailing list. So this was our second one, which went to absolutely everybody, and it was the final appeal before the cutoff point of the Big Give week. And again, all just like fed back to that really, really super simple framing of hope for the climate, engaging the public, positive practical solutions, and doubling impact. And then we actually top this all off with a thank you. So we sent one thank you to everyone that donated to the Big Give, focusing on the difference the donation had made. And then using very, very similar framing and language, we actually sent one also to people that didn't donate at all, asking them, saying like, oh, it's not too late, you can actually still give us a regular gift. A few people did do that. It wasn't hugely lucrative, as you would sort of expect. They didn't even donate a single donation during the most lucrative time to do it, and the most obvious time to do it. But nonetheless, we thought that was really, it was a follow-up action worth doing. And a few people did do it, so that was good. But also, we really just wanted to thank our donors as well, which we think is a really important part of building that ongoing relationship with people that have donated to your charity. And then finally, I could just give you a little sense of what this all resulted in. So we hit our target, basically, raised about 28 grand from our supporters. And then this was from just under 400 donors with an average donation of about £70 each. Now, that is massively distorted by a very, very small number of like massive donations. I think our biggest one was like essentially a major donor of about £5,000. So that had a really distorting effect on the average, obviously. We completely arbitrarily decided to call £200 like the cutoff of what we call a small donation. So if you exclude everything over £200, we had 361 donors. So you can see that there's only about 25 larger donors who have sort of really distorted that average. And we've got an average donation of £26, basically. So that's really encouraging. We did get like quite a large number of relatively small donations, which is nice to see that we can mobilize our quote unquote ordinary supporters to do that. Open rates were pretty good throughout. So we got just over 40% on the first two, as you would expect, diminishing returns on the final reminder, 32%. With click rates were around 1%, which interestingly is lower than even on usual average for fundraising appeals, which tends to hover around 2%. But it just it goes to show that like actually the conversion on this must have been pretty high. Obviously, this isn't integrated into our usual donation platform, but yeah, it shows that people were quite motivated to donate when they did click through. I think the really key thing that I would mention from the results, and goes back to that last slide as well, is that the engagement from the regular donors was the highest. And I think it's probably one of the key learnings I can sort of impart here from our experience, is that we weren't quite sure whether or not regular donors would sort of feel they'd done their bit, or they'd already given too much, or and all the rest of it. We actually found that the engagement for the regular donors was like through the roof compared to the rest of our support base. So when we segmented them, they had a 55% open rate and over 10% click rate. Obviously, we can't know exactly what the conversion rate was because it just takes people to the Big Give platform. But nonetheless, that shows that they were, in principle, really, really, really highly engaged, which was really great to see. And that's something that we like sort of taken away as a learning into our general fundraising after the Big Give as well. I think that is all from me, actually. So thank you very much for listening. Happy to answer any questions when we get around to that section. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell. That was a really great presentation. And I just want to say, yeah, about the A/B testing, that's something we've experienced as well, where we've done A/B testing, and you always hope for a clear answer, and sometimes the results are inconclusive. So you're still wondering what the best way is to do is, but it's all part of the process. So finally, we have Anthony and Jenny from Rainforest Saver, who are going to talk about their, typically their Christmas challenge campaign, which they won an award for as well. So I will hand over to Anthony and Jenny.
Great. Hello. So I'm Anthony from Rainforest Saver. We're an absolutely tiny charity. I'm the chair. We've been going for 17 years, and we teach a very specific form of agroforestry aimed at reducing the cutting of rainforest by small farmers. And we work in Cameroon and Ecuador at the moment. We liaise with other charities in Sierra Leone and Honduras because this is something of a miracle technique. And so the Christmas Challenge was our first time on the Big Give, which we were delighted to get into, and we were even more delighted to go shooting past our target. So we went in very modestly, being as small as we are, and we will be more ambitious next time. So the first step in getting us going was the equivalent of this webinar, which really brought into focus how to set about it. And the great thing is that shortly after that, we found Jenny as a volunteer to run social media, etc., which was all the skills we were missing. And I'm going to hand over to Jenny, to take you through the campaign she masterminded.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'll share now my screen. All right. Can you all see it? I hope you can see it.
Yeah.
All right. So Anthony already gave us an introduction about Rainforest Saver, and now I'll go into the challenge that we actually faced going into the Big Give Christmas Challenge last 2023. So it was actually twofold for us in terms of the challenges that we faced. The first is in terms of limited funding. So we really had to diversify our donor base for us to get the funding that we needed for our on-ground efforts. And the Big Give Christmas Challenge really provided us with that opportunity to get that required funding. And Anthony mentioned the second challenge here, the digital know-how. So while some of the members, some of the trustees of Rainforest Saver are familiar with social media fundamentals, we recognize the fact that our collective understanding was limited. And that's what actually led them to finding a volunteer. That's how we found each other. And we're actually very happy and proud of the results, the turnout of the campaign, as you can see here, in terms of our target achievement. So our online donations versus our target, we were able to achieve 237%. And if we look at our overall target, we also were able to exceed that. We were able to achieve 158%. And we're very happy that we were able to exceed these targets within just 2 days from the time that we started our campaign. And we also were able to get new donors. So 15% of our donors are actually new supporters. And the last two here, the bottom two metrics are actually in terms of our digital KPIs. So we were able to extend our reach further online. So we were able to grow our following by almost 200%. And our engagement rate for our posts for the campaign was also quite high. It was higher than the industry average of 1.47%. So our posts for the campaign were averaging at 7.6% in terms of engagement rate. So what exactly did we do for us to achieve these results? So we can summarize what we did. Our entire planning and execution can be summarized into what we call our 5 C's journey. So each of the C represents a key aspect of what we did. So starting off with cultivating insights. This is what Anthony mentioned earlier. We really started off by trying to learn as much as we can from other charities, from other organizations, especially because it was the first time for Rainforest Savers to participate in the Big Give Christmas Challenge. So we tried to really maximize as much as we can from the webinar that we participated in, similar to the webinar that we have now. We gained learnings and we tried to draw inspiration from other charities. And one of the key learnings that we actually got was in terms of the content structure. This is something that we applied in our own content, which I'll be also talking about in a bit. So what we learned from some of the charities that have shared during that webinar was in terms of how you actually create the content. So you start with a post that would really excite your audience. It's like a save the date post. And then you follow it up with reminders that build up to the campaign. And then you create a sense of urgency with your post. So including call to actions like donate now is very crucial. And then closing it out with another reminder when the campaign is about to end. So that kind of structure really gets the attention of the audience. It engages them and it's able to sustain their interest and their participation. Now, the next C is what we call our classic campaigning. So essentially, this is all about our offline method, because this has worked for Rainforest Saver in the past. And that's why we continued to leverage the power of in-person connections. So we gave talks to communities, we distributed flyers in different venues to extend our reach. But we were also aware that this type of approach had its own limitations, especially when it comes to reach. And that's where the third C comes in, connecting with the online audience. So we know all about how social media really helps broaden our audience. And that's exactly what we did by maximizing our social media presence. So we are mainly on Facebook. That's our main platform. On Facebook, we followed a high frequency posting schedule. So that allowed us to really drive awareness for our campaign. But we also tried to tap into new communities by creating presence on other social media platforms, such as Instagram and LinkedIn. So we got into those platforms so we can tap into new demographics. And that has allowed us to increase our reach by almost 200%. The fourth C is all about content. So we know that content is king. And our whole journey throughout this campaign really made us take a step back and to really go back to the basics when it comes to creating content. So what we really tried to follow and apply is in terms of consistency when it comes to our branding colors. As you can see on the sample posts here, we also created compelling captions and made our copy for the images stronger, because we know that a lot of people, they don't read through the captions, they just browse through them. That's why it's important to have a strong copy to go with the image. And we also tried to create compelling content with tools like Canva and ChatGPT. So these tools really helped us in terms of making content creation easier and more efficient. And as mentioned earlier, we really applied the learning that we gained from some of the charities that we listened to. We followed the content structure that we learned about, and that was able to help us in terms of engaging our audience. And the last C is about constant communication. So yes, we are a small group, but we made sure that we stayed connected. So in our case, we used Slack as our main communication channel. And our collaborative environment, it really helped us in terms of facilitating an easier and faster sharing of ideas. So we had several learnings and insights from our entire campaign journey, but just to summarize and share with you some of these insights and learnings. The first is about striking the right chord. So what are we actually talking about here? Anthony mentioned this earlier. Initially, we were really cautious about setting our goals too high. And that's why we were pleasantly surprised when we actually got so much overwhelming support. And that's why looking ahead, we aim to make our fundraising bar higher. We aim to set it higher. And we now embrace the challenge of stretching our goals, but making sure that we back it up with compelling and relevant communications, because we've seen how important relevant and compelling communication is. Our second learning is about having a multi-channel approach and how it yields exceptional results. So again, we combined our traditional and our digital approach to promote our cause and to get support from our existing and new donors. And we saw how that synergy was able to lead to an expansive engagement with both existing and new audiences. And the third learning is not being afraid to ask for help. So again, in terms of the digital capabilities, digital know-how, Rainforest Saver saw a need to address that. And that's how we found each other. And our collaborative efforts allowed us to bring a fresh perspective to the digital efforts of Rainforest Saver. The fourth learning is about technology. It's about leveraging available tools. So again, the use of tools like ChatGPT and Canva has really allowed us to overcome our resource constraints. And lastly, it's the power of storytelling. So for us, our campaign, it wasn't just really about raising funds, but it was a storytelling journey. So we shared stories about farmers using Inga. And we know that by doing this storytelling, it's not just about the words, but it's about really making connections with our audience. And by making these connections, we're able to make our audience storytellers themselves. And it's also about being able to make a positive impact and a positive change with the storytelling that we do. And that closes our story for Rainforest Saver. And if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny and Anthony. That was a really great presentation. I really enjoyed like how you put those 5 C's. It makes it easy for everyone to sort of go along with that guide, and the interesting use of, like you mentioned at the end, the technology which we've been trying to like understand as well about ChatGPT as well. So thank you all to all the presented panelists today for sharing your words of wisdom, and we always learn something from it as well. So we're going to open up to questions. So if anyone does have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. But we don't have anything at the moment, but I did have a question is, for any charity to jump in here is, what is your approach to goal setting in terms of for the campaign? When are you, for example, thinking about getting new donors through the recruiting new donors through the campaign? Were you looking for new social media reach? How did you approach that sort of thinking when you are setting out the goals? Did you come together as a team, or was it sort of done top down when you were setting those goals? Do I have to pick on someone to get the ball rolling? Katrina, did you set any goals for your campaign before it started? Was there a specific, beyond obviously raising the donations, was there other specific aims you wanted to reach?
Yes, well, especially now that as Bees Abroad, we run both the Green Match Fund campaign and the Christmas campaign. One of the things we focused on, at least for the Green Match Fund campaign, is to not put all our efforts on the fundraising, but much more on the awareness and building out our network. That's why we organize the online events, and we choose our guest speakers very carefully as well on the events. And again, the theme is also a way for us to attract a wider audience than our existing one. So we do have targets within our team. It's a very small team. We are 3 people focused on the campaign every time, but it's around the subscribers that we gain. We also are very cautious about losing. If you talk too much or ask too much, there's a high chance you might lose audience from the subscribers in your newsletter. But also we monitor how many donors are new or existing, because we are very conscious of the size of our existing donor base and the fact that we want to try and reach new audiences. So part of our success metric is how many new donors did we get in each campaign, and is this a consistent one as we go through the different big give campaigns that we run.
Great, thanks, Katrina. Does anyone else want to elaborate on or sort of share what their approach was to the goal setting, like for the campaign? Oh, there is a question from Alicia. She wants to know, and this is for anyone, she'd love to know what you'd have done differently. Is there anything you tried and that didn't work and you wouldn't do again? Does anyone have any insights there? Russell?
Sure, I can sort of package in a little bit of an answer to the previous question with this as well, actually, because for the very crude answer for us is that this is a not insignificant part of our core income for our charity. So the primary goal really is to hit the target that we're setting ourselves, and the secondary goals of deepening engagement with supporters or reaching new people on social media really are quite secondary to us, and we really are focused on the fundraising aspect first and foremost. And to that end, if there was something we just did the Christmas one as well, and if there is something, I did allude to this in the slides, but if there's something I'm increasingly skeptical of the utility of it for us, is the amount of effort that we have put into an accompanying social media strategy and content plan alongside direct engagement with our existing support base. I'm not sure the effort to reward ratio justifies our current approach. I do think that obviously we want to be seen to be part of the community of people that are participating in Big Give, and we want to see the really core supporters that are engaged with our channels. It's good to get their eyeballs on the branding and the messaging, just so they are primed for that when they receive that email in their inbox asking them for money. But it's my current hypothesis that almost all, I would not be completely surprised if it is literally all of our donations, the individual donations, came from our existing supporter base, rather than being solicited from social media, where I'm not, we don't expect great metrics on fundraising appeals on social anyway. We don't put any money behind anything, by the way. I should say, this is all just organic reach. So yeah, we don't see great engagement on fundraising asks on social anyway, and this was to an extent no exception. especially around Christmas, where like you're competing with a lot of other fundraisers at that point as well and stuff like that. And I think also, to be blunt about it as well, because of the nature of our charity and the nature of our work, it doesn't lend itself to a particularly simple emotive visual trigger either. So that's something else we struggle with in terms of translating to socials. So that's a really long-winded way of saying that that's something I would possibly redivert resources away from, and something that I'm not sure that was, we've got a relatively small, relatively low-resourced comms team as well. So I would be interested if I had the nerve, just to, because I'd hate to be proven wrong, but the stakes are so high. But if I had the nerve, I'd be interested to try just an email marketing campaign only, in a sense, to see if we could still hit our targets doing it, because I suspect that we would, while also cutting down the effort and the outputs required.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Russell. I don't know, Jenny or Patrick. Yeah, Anthony, you're raising your hand.
Well, I thought I might add that we didn't get a big increase in donors through social media, but we did get one or two through LinkedIn, and I find that the most interesting channel. Maybe I don't know whether you back me up, Jenny, but the fact that we've massively increased the number of people following us on LinkedIn, I think, is something that we will wish to build on when we do the Green Challenge next month.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Anthony. Beth, yeah, there's a couple of questions. You want to pick one out?
Yeah, sure. The first question is, well, it says, thanks so much. A lot of tips involving telling stories, which works well for charities and projects as you work on the ground. So they work for a food ethics council, and because they don't work on the ground, instead they kind of operate in the policy think tank advocacy space. They're raising funds to explore the right for food. Do you have any advice for a charity that doesn't necessarily have access to impact stories on the ground?
I think that's probably for Russell. You probably hit the closest to that.
We do fantastic work on the ground, I
Yeah.
know. I completely see what you're saying. And yeah, we do struggle with the same thing. And that is something that we did actively try harder to lean into in the Christmas one than you did in the slides that you saw us from last April, which was really, in a sense, quite an abstract appeal to the notion of the idea of like betterment of climate policy, basically, because we do a lot of work just in that lobbying and policy space as well. And I think that basically, the key to it really is just, the degree to which you've got supporters that see the value of your work in the first place. And we're very fortunate, that we do. We've got like a really, committed support base that's very passionate about seeing positive change in climate policy. And, the quote unquote lack of that sort of personal testimony or emotive stories from frontline service users or such like that. We're not that sort of charity. We do have some, people who have experienced like tree planting days with us who talk about how great it was, and people that have got their electronics fixed for free on the high street because it's something we set up and that sort of thing. So we do try to use them when we can. But I would also again then say that I'm not sure that I didn't see a notable uptick in engagement from doing that compared to what we did last April, which was a really, like I say, quite top line abstract way of appealing to what your supporters care about, basically, and the thing that why are they supporting your charity, and you just sort of appeal to it on that really basic level, I think. And we found that we were very lucky to have people that are willing to donate to the most obvious charitable purpose, that the stated charitable purpose of our organisation. So I think that that is a real limitation in terms of bringing in new people and attracting people from social. We would really struggle to take that approach if we did put money behind a paid campaign or social to try and do list growth and get new donors through the door for the first time. But in terms of motivating and activating our existing supporters, we found that we were able to do that, basically.
Great, thank you. Beth, go ahead.
Thank you. Really helpful answer. We have another question here that says, we currently only work with donations from organizations giving around 5 to 10K a year. We have a large engaged network, but will be our first foray into individual giving, and thus will change in relationship with this network. Do you have any tips? Not sure if any of the charities on the call have similar audiences or used to have similar audiences.
I Yeah, if none of the charities have that problem, I guess it would be good to understand is, are you still engaging, like how are you engaging with those organizations if they're like donating to you just directly from the company, or are they going to, do you want to engage with them and ask them to actually share the campaign within their network, within their employee base? If it's the latter that you sort of want to take a new approach to, what one thing that we've seen other charities to do have done is like they've created like sort of campaign packs for those organizations. So like basically it's like list of like social media posts that they can put on their social channels, all of these email templates, like if those businesses are going to be emailing their employees about the campaign. Some of those organizations were going to be throwing like bake sales for the charity to help raise funds that way. So the charity like created like a whole sort of party pack for like sort of what they could do, like how they can market that bake sale, and just basically templated everything, making it easy as possible for the organization to share it as much as possible. If you are looking for away from them, just general individual donors, I think one thing that we always say is have a sign up button on your website, like for a newsletter. So even if you're not in a position to start receiving donations from those individuals or don't have anything to send them immediately, just give a way for people to sign up to a newsletter. So when you are ready, you have a database ready. And I think the last one is talk to your network. So talk to your trustees, talk to your volunteers. Can they share who's in their network that can share the campaign and sort of reach out further than you think? I remember a charity saying you never know who your network knows. So once you do that mapping, it makes it a bit easier to sort of share your campaign and get the word out there beyond sort of your initial core donor base. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add on top of that. Yeah, Katrina?
I mean, exactly what you said, Sahil, is absolutely right. We started off with direct networking, you know, seeing who the trustees know, who in the organizations that support us can be our ambassadors. You know, we give them enough information and material so they can then promote within their organization or further. And so it's all about to begin with, when it comes to individual donations, it's the network you have and just going out there. And then the other thing would be to approach opportunities in groups where you can do talks. And that way you raise that awareness within the group setup, so you can, you know, at least get a few people at a time, as opposed to trying to do a one-to-one, which is high effort at the beginning. So because our direct link would be with the beekeeping community, at least in the UK, at the beginning. So one approach for us was to go to the associations, the beekeepers associations, through our volunteers and our supporters, and do talks about what we do. And that just raises the awareness as we go along. And then it's a snowball afterwards, but you do need to start from that approach.
Thank you. We have one question here for Jenny. What do you consider to be high frequency posting on Facebook? I'd be interested to know how many posts you put out over the course of the week.
Sure. So just to give context in terms of our posting on Facebook for Rainforest Saver. So prior to the Big Give Christmas Challenge campaign, we would post on the average per month around 2 to 3 posts on Facebook. But for the campaign, so leading to the campaign, because it started around November 28th, the campaign started in November 28th. So as early as and October to first week of November, we already started creating posts for the campaign. And leading to the campaign, we would have all these reminders. So it would be about 1 post a day leading to the campaign. So from around the mid of November, and especially on the week of the campaign, that's when the frequency was even higher for the posting. And that's when we would give reminders and also really drive urgency. So it's like 1 post a day, our followers would see us really campaigning for Rainforest Saver. And we would even have, like on the last day of the campaign, we had this post where to really drive a sense of urgency, we had in the copy something along the lines of 1 hour, 30 minutes to go. So I think more than the frequency of posting, it's also the content, the caption, what you have in your caption, and again, what you have in your image copy that will really drive your audience. So to directly answer the question, what was the frequency? It was 1 post a day during the entire campaign. So that really made us or gave our audience top of mind awareness for Rainforest Saver.
And if you were at the call yesterday with Shape History, they talked about sites like Buffer or maybe other scheduling tools that your charity might be using. And often they give you like an optimized time to post. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't know when to do a post on that 1 times a day, they often give you like some suggested times when your followers are most active. So something to look into if you do have one of those scheduling programs already as a charity.
Thanks, Beth, and thanks, Jenny. I don't see any questions, any further questions, so I think we can wrap it up there. Yeah, so I just want to reiterate my thanks to Russell, Anthony, Jenny, and Katerina for joining us today and taking time out of their busy schedules to share their insights with us. It was really great presentations. I want to thank everyone for joining us for the webinar today, and thank you for your questions. As ever, contact us at hello@biggive.org if you have any other questions. We have the Ask Us Anything webinar on tomorrow, so that is just your opportunity to ask any questions that you may have, and me and Beth will be on that call. But other than that, I will leave you to it and hope everyone has a great rest of the day. See you. Bye.